Hello folks. Hey, about a year ago I added a main water valve that would protect me against a flood should one of my major appliances connected to my water system, like my refrigerator, my dishwasher, and etc., spring a leak while I was away from the home, or even while I was there at the home. There's several appliances in the house. You saw the fridge, the dishwasher, water heater, toilet, bathroom sink, kitchen sink that could spring leaks and go undetected and cause a flood in your home, virtually costing you thousands of dollars and a lot of time and effort to repair. Washing machine is another very susceptible one with the two rubber hoses leading to the valves that usually are always on. What I did was I installed a whole house main valve that would automatically turn the water off if water were detected at any of those remote appliances. I used a valve from a company called FloodStop. Here's the URL. Now, the valve I used was for a water heater only, so I just, instead of installing the valve at the water heater, I installed it in the main line. And instead of using just one sensor, I ordered several sensors from the FloodStop company and put them at each of the various appliances so a leak could be detected there. Here's how I did it. The first thing I did was I installed the main FloodStop valve in the main line coming from the street. Here's my main line and my main shutoff valve, which is on now. I turned the shutoff valve off and drained the system so that I could access the line just ahead of this valve. I installed the FloodStop valve in series with the line. I used the valve that had the pipe threaded fittings. You can also order one with compression fittings. I didn't feel comfortable putting it in the line. This involved a little bit more sweat soldering and a little bit more detail. But ultimately, the valve installation has been in a year, and I'm fairly happy with the installation. Now, make sure you buy a valve from FloodStop and a good vendor that will support you. Don't just go on eBay and buy one, because a lot of those guys don't know what they're selling. I bought an older version of this valve, and I had to replace it with the newer version of the valve and the control unit. Once the valve is installed, you install the control unit. I mounted it near my LAN TV distribution system where all my wiring came so I could have access to the wires in the house. You've got all your sensors go to this, your valve goes to it, and you've got a power connection. The thing is also battery backed up in case you lose power. Then the next thing you do is install the sensors. And what I did was I drilled a hole, quarter-inch hole through the floor for the wire and plugged it with caulking compound as a fire stop. And then what you've got is the wire coming up through the floor with the connector on one end of it that you can connect to the sensor that goes under the appliance. Here's the sensor that goes under the refrigerator. Notice I put it directly under the refrigerator to detect water leaks from the ice maker or the indoor water system. Here's the dishwasher. I simply pulled off the front panel, drilled a hole up from the basement underneath the dishwasher, plugged the hole, and I put another FloodStop sensor here underneath the dishwasher. This also would catch water leaks from the main kitchen sink. And notice I put it at the lowest point. Now when you put these sensors in, you want to make sure that you position them properly. Don't lay them on the floor upside down. Here's one improperly positioned. Flip it over, make sure that the wiring side is up. This sensor happens to be the sensor that goes underneath the washing machine. Also, I put a sensor near the hot water heater in case it sprung a leak. It's not as critical because it's in the basement close to a drain, but in any event, you can put these near the toilets, bathroom sinks, anywhere in your home. Then you wire all the sensors to the control unit and just put all of the sensors in parallel, which means in parallel. Look it up on Wikipedia, you'll see what series and parallel is. You can also parallel the sensors directly from one sensor to another, which FloodStop allows in their configuration. Note this goes to a Cat5 cable to my distribution panel. I pulled the green and white pair that were connected to all the sensors out at the distribution panel and connected it to the sensor wire at the FloodStop itself. Here's a diagram of the system. Notice you can put as many of these sensors in parallel, extended, local as you want, but you can only have one control unit, one power supply, and one master shutoff valve in the system. But as many sensors as you want. The only caveat is you have to figure out where the leak is if the system should ever trigger. Now, once everything is done up to now, you connect the sensor to the control valve. The control valve wires into a plug along with the sensor valves. I had to make a little extension because the control valve is about 15 foot away from the unit. there's the cable going to the control valve. Once that's all wired and connected together, you can test the function of the control valve. You simply push the close button on the control unit and listen for the valve to close. Once it's closed, you'll see the light blink differently, and you can go ahead and open the unit and verify that the system works. Here's a short video clip of that same thing. Okay, we've got the valve installed, and we're going to test it just to make sure that the control box controls the valve and it opens and closes. So the first thing we want to do is close the valve. If you'll notice, the control unit is blinking once every 5 or 10 seconds, which indicates normal operation. I'm going to close the valve now by pushing the red button. The valve closes. You can hear it close, and the flood stop should blink differently. It's now blinking twice to indicate that yes, indeed, the valve is closed. You see there's 2 blinks. Okay, so we'll push the open to open the valve. Send the signal to open the valve. The valve has opened, and the flood stop's now blinking once every 5 or 10 seconds in the normal operation. So that tests actual operation of the FloodStop system itself. Again, we've got mute, we've got open, we've got close, and we'll only get an alarm if one of the sensors should trigger. Next thing you do is test each sensor. What you do to test each sensor is wet your thumb and your forefinger with a bit of water, and then touch the sensor on the top and the bottom. At that point, the alarm should trigger, give an audible beep, flash rapidly, and it will turn your water off if your control valve is connected up to it. What you want to do is just, for the time being, temporarily push the mute button and stop the beeping. Let's watch a short video of that actually happening. Okay, I want to show you how the flood stop triggers when one of the remote sensors is just simply wet with a little bit of water between your thumb and your forefinger. Notice that the light's blinking right now about once every 5 or 10 seconds. When it trips, it will blink rapidly, and I'll try to capture the valve actually closing. There, you can hear that it's tripped. And the valve is closed. Okay, now what I'm going to go do is go out and dry off the sensor and open the valve. Okay, now that your system's working, all you need to do is go up and towel off the sensor, paper towel or something, and make sure it's dry. Once you've done that, go back to your flood stop control unit and push the open valve. If everything's okay and there are no wet sensors, the sensor should open fine. Here's a video. Okay, the valve is closed and the alarm's triggering. What I'm going to do now is open the valve, acknowledge this, and then open the valve. You probably heard the valve come on open there. It's difficult one to capture, but the valve's open and the system is now back in its normal operating state with the control blinking once every 10 or so seconds. Your system should be installed. Now, you need to test and make sure that each one of these sensors work. If any sensor is wet, you're going to have to figure out where the leak is, fix the leak, and dry the sensor before you'll be able to reset the remote. Now make sure you know where your sensors are. If the remote triggers, you need to check every sensor, figure out where the leak is, fix it, and you're ready to go. Your home should be reasonably protected against leaks. Here's a copy of that schematic again for those of you that missed it on the first try. Email me, I'll send you one if you want a detailed example.